We are live and talking about buses and public transportation. It's a
Ex-
thrill.
exactly. Something that 99% of you Americans don't know what it is, a bus.
That is true. Well, I have to say the train. I take a train which takes me, like I said, 2 hours door to door to get to 14th Street,
Mm.
but it's much more reliable in terms of. I was just telling Paulo here, if I'm on the bus and it rains, add an extra half an hour to the ride. That doesn't happen
Mm.
on the train. It's got its own delays sometimes, but much fewer. There's rarely a traffic jam. I mean, get coming out of you can run into a traffic jam coming out of New York City, like right at the Lincoln Tunnel we took. Right, it can take you half an hour to get through the tunnel. There have been times I used to, coming out of New York City, especially at night. I had to stop doing this because it made me stay up too late. I'd fall asleep on the bus. Like I'd be in a 5:20 bus and I'd fall asleep for half an hour, wake up somewhere along the line. There were times where I'd fall asleep on the bus, wake up a half an hour later, and we're still in the tunnel. That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, no,
You're like,
no.
what?
I did sleep for 20 minutes coming back today, and we were still over the bridge.
There you go. Good evening, ladies. Good evening to you, Mind the Comics.
Yes, I
And
think he wants to
Wilson
get the.
should be here this week.
Mhm,
I saw him post a message that he would be.
mhm.
Must be
Man,
running late.
yeah, and Mind the Comics is probably looking to restart the Portuguese show.
Ah.
The one that Comic Crack keeps coming into, and then we're talking about in a language that he doesn't understand.
Hey, why are these guys talking so funny? It makes no sense what they're
Yeah.
saying.
Mhm. We did have a comic book event in the north of the country last weekend, but
Yep.
I couldn't go because it's the
Ah.
north of the country, and going and coming back would cost me about $100 just coming
Wow.
and going.
Wow. That's no fun. Good evening, Tit Goblin. Good to
Hey,
see you here with us. Yeah, it's no fun when it's like, just going there will cost you this as much as you were going to spend at the con, kind of thing,
hmm
or whatever.
yeah, because if I were to go by car, uh, we would have to fill up the seats so we could share tolls
Yeah,
and fuel.
yeah.
If I take the train, that thing is stupid expensive. Might as well take. It's a 2.5 hour car ride.
Uh huh.
Depending on the type of train, it can be either a 1.5 hour train ride or a 4.5 hour train ride.
Uh huh.
Because there's one train that's the express train only stops twice in the way,
Uh huh.
and then we get there. And the other one stops everywhere, so that's why it takes 4.5 hours.
Are,
And
are
there
they
is a
are they different prices too?
yeah, they are. But yeah, there's no way I could. The train ride, because of the price, it also almost makes it worth taking a plane ride. So it's a 45-minute plane ride.
Wow.
And
Wow.
planes aren't cheap nowadays.
No, but trains can be really expensive. I bumped into a tourist here for the submarine foolishly and asked where the subway was and was shocked when I spoke American.
Well, he should have spoken Canadian. Then he wouldn't understand.
I had a friend get mad at me once
hmm
when, like I said, I have a barbecue every year in August, and invite people, and it was I think on Facebook. The person, and when someone from New York City doesn't want to go someplace, They ask you, well, what subway do I take to get there? Knowing full well there's no subway to take to get there. That's New York City speak for I don't know. I don't want to go. That's what.
Mhm.
And there's clearly no subway up here in Rockland County. It's not New York City. It's
Yeah.
And he actually asked me. He said, "Oh, what subway do I take to get there?" So I just went, "Ha ha," and didn't answer him because there's no answer to that. There is no subway you take to get here. And then he got mad at me that I didn't answer his question. I was like, "What? What?
Yeah.
I didn't answer your question. What subway to take where there's no subways?"
Mhm. What do you mean there's no subways? There's always a subway. I'm here in New York. We got subways everywhere.
I once drove Boston to New York City by highway and paid 50 cents. Was baffled. It would cost $50 in Portugal. Yeah, we've got
Yes,
more
it
toll
would.
roads now, but
Hmm.
I don't think it would cost you that much still to drive to Boston.
Hmm.
Now,
Isn't it,
now you
isn't
don't
it
even know how much
faster
it cost you.
if you're in Brooklyn and Queens? Is it faster to go to the Hamptons and take the bus there to the mainland?
No,
The bus,
no,
the boat to the mainland? No,
probably not. Queens, Queens, you can get in and out of pretty quickly.
through the Bronx.
Through the Bronx or through West Yonkers and Westchester.
Mm.
Like, but the bridges are like $12 or $15, I think, to get out of Queens.
Ouch. Wait, they charge you to get out?
I can't remember if they charge. Yeah, I can't remember if they're charging both ways because everything now is electronic. They don't. There's not even any toll booths anymore. They
Right.
will. You either use your Easy Pass electronic toll booth thing, or they mail you a bill. They take a picture of your license plate and mail you a bill.
You know that all of the patents for all of that were developed in Portugal.
Oh, okay. But yeah,
not paying people at the toll booth.
I'm
How can we stop paying people at the toll booth?
Makes things go faster, but it's still not fast going on Long Island. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but your friend who wanted to take the subway to Rockland County, he must have thought, yeah, Rockland County, that's upstate New York, right?
Yeah. Oh, if you live in
on the other side of the bridges,
Long Island in New York City, there's only upstate New York. That's all there is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's all. So remember the comic from last week that I got a subscription for? I did, in fact, get 5 comic covers. Oh, and 1 autographed print.
Nice.
We were talking about this is The Sickness is the name of it. Can't even see that one. It's so dark. Where's one you can see? This is cover A. And do you remember a comic called Black Stars Above?
No.
It was I bought it, I think, a couple years ago now. Comic Crack was getting that one too. I think it was from Vault Comics. It's the same team that does this. What's their name? I'm going to have to look it up now. Jenna Cha and Lonnie Nadler. So it's Jenna Cha and Lonnie Nadler. And they're the same one. That must be why I got the subscription to this, which I didn't remember when I got these, was because I liked Black Stars Above. So I must have gone, oh, those are the Black Stars Above people. Because I got the subscription for it back in like March or something like that. And Black Stars Above was this really creepy comic. I think it was about 5 issues that took place in like the Canadian wilderness in like the late 1800s, with this young girl having to travel through the woods to get to this, I don't know, to some relative's place or something. And it was just this really, it's hard. I don't even know what the plot was. All it was this little girl trying to travel, and lots of weird, creepy things happened to her. So it's this horror book, but it's just strange and creepy. It's not. There's not like even though I can't even. I don't. I couldn't even describe the plot to you. Right now. And this one is kind of really creepy. It starts out like, and it's sort of everyday horror in terms of it's like the first scene takes place in 1945. I'm not even sure where, some small town somewhere. And it's a bunch of teenagers talking about this and that and uh, bashing on each other. And meanwhile, there's this one teenager who kind of just wants to get home. He's tired of socializing, and he keeps seeing these creepy monsters in windows. And then it cuts to like 1953, where this woman sees creepy monsters and ends up, I think you don't actually see this, she ends up murdering her husband and child. I don't know if it's children or child. And then the rest of the story is about this, I think he was like the coroner or something, trying to figure out what this woman did and there's just lots of like dialogue going on as these people are having everyday conversations with all this creepy stuff. And let me show you the drawings a little bit. And creepy drawings going. It's this sort of very fine lined weird style. Where it's just kind of very creepy. There's no elegance to it. It's just kind of like this really weird black and white, thin lined. There he is pulling off, looking at some wound. And it's like, creepy is the only way to. Oh, hold on, wrong one. Where am I? No, I got to exit solo layout. That's what I want to do. Whew. Couldn't remember for a minute. I'm talking and doing the same thing. Oh, there's Wilson. Good evening, Wilson.
Hey.
Good evening. Hello.
So I did end up, and for those of you who Wilson wasn't here last week, here's a comic I got 5 covers to. Because it's by Uncivilized Books, who also publish Craig Thompson's Ginseng Root. That's how I kind of got on. That's how I ended up signing up for their email newsletter. And then back in March or so, these are by the same creators who did another series I bought, Black Stars Above. And they were like, for $30, you can get a subscription. It's going to be, they said it was going to be 5 issues, $6 an issue. So it's, cover price is $6. So the subscription cost are the same as buying it in the comic shop. And they also said, for the first 200 people who subscribe, we'll send you all 5 covers, no extra charge. So I was like, all right, I'm going to buy that anyway. Let's try getting a subscription to it, see what happens. And now I got 5 covers, and I'm not really sure what to do with 5 covers. And if you notice, what's funny, too, is I put these ones in. I usually don't put my comics in backing boards because I'm from before the age of backing boards. All my comics are in bags, but only a few of them are in backing boards. But I put these ones in backing boards just because the one of like my comics that are like I bought only for their cover, they're all in backing boards because I'm like the comics that I'm going to handle the most, I want backing boards on. So just because I got 5 covers to this, I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep the covers out for a little while. May as well see them. So they're just sitting over on some tape. That one's a pretty cool cover. I like that one. But I'm just gonna put because I was like, I'm gonna handle these a bit to get my money's worth out of 5 covers. But good creepy story. And now I'll have to get see when the others are coming out. But they came shipped really well in a mailer, packed well, and they're in perfect shape when I got them. Let's see, what do we got here? They saved distribution and retailers' costs. Exactly. So they could bring them at the same price. How was your convention, Wilson?
I was not at a convention. What it was is that me and a couple of my buddies went. My buddy Eric, who's the other half of Section 8 Comics, he's the writer. I'm the artist for a lot of our books. he's been wanting to do. He before COVID, he was doing trips to various places in the United States to kind of check off eating at a particular place in, let's say, New Jersey or California or whatever. And he was like doing this thing before COVID hit. And then obviously COVID hit, so we haven't done anything like that. So he set a date of, hey, why don't we go to this particular place up in Maine so we could hit Maine, New Hampshire, and one other place that I can't remember at the
Vermont.
Vermont. And it was like, okay, let's hit these places. And it was just, basically a weekend type of thing. Something I believe people call vacations. I don't really know much about those, but it was one of those things that was planned. So we went up to Portsmouth, I think it's Portsmouth, Maine, and we had lobster rolls in this area up there. And so it was a lot of fun. It was basically more traveling than anything else. So we traveled. It was 4 of us all together, and it was just hitting a couple of places to just have lunch and or dinner in various spots. And if there was a comic book shop, we would try to hit that as well. And we did find one called Casablanca Comics, and it was pretty cool. It was a place that was from the outside. It looked abandoned, so we weren't sure if it was even a working store. But it was just because of the layout. So once you open the doors, you have to go down the stairs, and then it's like a whole area downstairs. So there's like 4 stores in that one area. So it's a comic book shop, a pizza shop, um, a place that I guess used to have live music, but that was closed, and then one other store that I don't recall off the top of my head. And it was a traditional comic book shop, a pretty large size. We found out later that the area where they used to have live music is kind of a warehouse space, and they were gearing up to do a weekend warehouse sale. So there was long boxes all over the place in that area. We just couldn't get to go see it because that part was still closed to the public at the time. But the comic book shop was pretty neat, very open space, and they had something that was pretty cool. So they didn't have much on back issues. They had a couple of bins, but what they had was like they had a section of the store that where you could buy a full run of books. So if it was like a short 9-issue run or something, they just packaged them all together and they were selling them like that. And I found that was an interesting way to just sell some back issues. And if I didn't already own them all, I would have picked up a few. I ended up buying the Amazing Spider-Man 121 facsimile edition. So I ended up buying that there. But the other books that I knew that I had books waiting for me at Midtown because I hadn't gone to Midtown for like 3 weeks. So I didn't want to pick up something that I was going to already get. So it was kind of fun, stopping by a comic book shop you know, that was a traditional comic book shop that only sold comics. I didn't see toys, action figures, or anything like that. They did have they had dice and they had some card game stuff. But other than that, it was just mostly comic books, trade paperbacks, and some hardcover stuff here and there, or comic book adjacent stuff, posters and whatnot. But I was surprised not to see toys.
There's a YouTuber who that's his local store. He hasn't been on in a little while. What's it? Chad Gilly. I think he uses his name in his channel. But I'm pretty sure Casablanca Comics was his local store. He's from Maine. He used to do more on YouTube. I don't know, 5 years ago. Haven't seen him in a little while, but that's where I know the name Casablanca Comics from. His YouTube videos.
I posted a few photos on Facebook, and Mort Todd says he has shopped at that store a few times.
Good evening, Lord Datman. Mind the comics. I miss Chowda. Happy Friday, 62 Lefty.
Hello, 62.
And you want to know how lettering can ruin a comic? I got this week. Tales of Suspense. Les Mort 13 and Dreamweaver. This is a new Ashley Wood comic. Who I don't have a lot of stuff by Ashley Wood, but I've always found his stuff kind of interesting. But I didn't make it, and it's half Les Mort 13 by Ashley Wood and half Dreamweaver by Chris Ryall. Is that who's doing Dreamweaver? But first of all, it started with, let me show you this. Some sort of light yellow on black, about 6-point type. I tried reading that, couldn't make it through it. And then we had this red on that light tan type. Real teeny tiny. Like 6-point. And after a few pages of that, I was just like, all right, I'm not even, I got lots of other comics to read. I don't even care to read this one. The type was just too hard to read. I'm like, what? I don't get it sometimes. He puts all, do people just not know not to do red on tan type and tan on black type? Do they think that's readable? It baffles me sometimes. But I bailed on the. I'm like, no more issues of this. I bailed on the first half. I looked at the pictures. It was nice to look at the pictures, but it was just like, you know what? You gotta get your lettering sorted out there if you want people to read your comic.
As it happens, I have an old Ashley Wood comic right here with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, I got it for free recently, and not only that, it's a Spawn.
Oh, look at that!
from 1999.
Wow. Can you read it? The type?
Well.
Oh, hold on. Let me. Oh wow.
What do you think? And it's black on yellow. You should read it. But
yeah, black on yellow should be.
Yeah, okay. And white on.
Yeah, that's
on brown.
It's
all really, mushy. And the thing is,
it's not 6 points high.
No, it isn't. But because it's supposed to be that thing that's kind of oblique.
Yeah.
You can't really tell. I mean, in here, and you get this wall of text here.
Oh, did McFarlane write that?
No, Paul Jenkins did.
Okay, I was gonna. If McFarlane wrote it, it's unreadable anyway, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, the thing is, yeah, Paul Jenkins was probably writing some horror story on spec and told this, and then figured out, oh, I have to put Spawn in here somewhere because he barely shows up.
Yeah, I did not know. I you know what? I really don't know what Ashley Wood is. I was just about to say I didn't know Ashley Wood did any Spawn. I'm like, I really don't know what he's done.
Yeah, this is a one-shot, Blood and Shadows, and in the indicia it actually says Spawn Annual Volume 1, Spawn Blood and Shadows.
Oh, okay.
So I suppose this was meant to start an annual line because it's a prestige format. It's got a spine and everything. But yeah, I mean, I got
this properly chowder. Did you guys read Kirkman's Void Rivals? Is it any good? Hold on a second. I got that in here. This is Kirkman and Lorenzo De Felici. Void Rivals. If it's any good, depends on who you are. Because it turns out this is part of the Transformers G.I. Joe universe.
Ooh.
Matter of fact, if you look in the back, where does it say? In indicia page, it says Void Rivals and all related characters are trademark Hasbro.
Ooh.
So it wasn't like it was bad, but as I was reading it, I found it really simplistic for Robert Kirkman. Do you remember the movie Enemy Mine with Lou Gossett Jr. and somebody who were a human and an alien who were enemies and crash landed on a, I don't know, planet or asteroid and had to work together to live, and they eventually became friends, despite the fact that, Lou Gossett Jr. was a lizard guy and the other guy was a human. That's what this is. In this, we get the story of these two. First, a spaceship crashes, and this guy lands, and he's trying to survive in the spaceship. Then a second spaceship crashes. Void rivals, and where's the other person? Here they are fighting. This other person lands and says, "Oh, we're enemies. We have to fight each other," and it's really heavy-handed. It's really kind of. Robert Kirkman usually has a lot more subtlety than this, but you could clearly tell where this was going, and it was like, oh, we have to work together, but it's a crime on my planet to talk to you. Well, it's a crime on my planet not to kill you, but then they have to work. But in the middle of them working together, they discover a transformer. That's the big surprise of them. No one knew this was a tie-in to G.I. Joe until that happened. But it's like somehow the transformer has been there for who knows how long, thousands of, and he flies off and is gone from the plot. And then the other two have to survive together. And then you find out it's part of the, what is it? The Energon universe, Energon. The Energon universe has arrived. Robert Kirkman's all-new Transformers and G.I. Joe shared universe continues every month in Void Rivals. So, I mean, the reason it seemed simplistic to me was because it fits into the G.I. Joe Transformers universe, who is, usually aimed at a younger audience. Not that it really read like a kid's book or anything like that, but just the whole, rivalry. Oh, I'm not allowed to. Was so heavy-handed that I was like, what's going on here? This isn't. Kirkman usually doesn't write like that. I guess he's writing for a different audience. He's writing for that G.I. Joe Transformers broader, maybe even younger audience. So it was a solid comic book. I just have no interest in it. No, I have no interest in the G.I. Joe Transformers universe. But they were saying at the comic shop, this turned into a hot book. Once it was found out, it was tied into the G.I. Joe Transformers. Then all of a sudden, all the G.I. Joe's Transformers fans wanted it. I was mad at the lettering in that new Wood book also. My buddy's image book Stringer came out the same day with my other buddy's hand lettering in it, so it made up for the Ashley Wood book crap. Yeah. I just couldn't read it. I was just like, I'm done trying to read it. Speedy Kirkman or Turtle Paste Kirkman? It seemed more like Speedy Kirkman because, like I said, I think it's a G.I. Joe Transformers book. It's got to be speedier. Good evening. Never read a G.I. Joe Transformers book in my life, and I've been walking the planet for almost 53 years. Sounds like a pass. I actually bought G.I. Joe 300. I bought G.I. Joe #1 back when it came out, and then skipped every other issue, except for I eventually bought 119 with the Secret Cobra salute in it. That's a whole other thing. And then when issue 300 came out, this winter, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy issue 300 just for the heck of it. That, and I liked the cover. It was one of those covers with 1 million characters on it. And G.I. Joe 300 was actually a good comic book. Larry Hama wrote it. I forget who drew it, but it was a solid adventure comic book. It was not as simplistic as this at all. It was actually much more complex. But yeah, good stuff. Sounds like a corporate marketing ploy. Yeah, well, it's a story ploy, if nothing. I don't know how much of a corporate marketing ploy. It sounds like a
Well,
Kirkman.
it is because it is because of Kirkman, and they're probably figuring that since Kirkman has two successful TV series, maybe they can jumpstart interest in Transformers and GI Joe for more movies again.
Could be. I also think that that the GI Joe Transformers jump started Void. I don't think Kirkman. I haven't had a Kirkman book on my pull list for a while now. And I was just saying that, and that's one of the reasons I tried that, because his last, I don't know, two comics at least that he put out, I was just like, I read an issue or two of and went, eh. Outcast was on my pull list, but that was mainly because of Paul Azaceta. And the Walking Dead run was on my pull. Walking Dead ended, Invincible ended, Outcast ended. I had, three Kirkman books on my pull list for the longest time, but then none. So I don't know. I don't know how well his comics are selling right now. So I don't know if his comics can jumpstart anything.
Yeah. Oh, you never know. From what I understand, I believe for at least the GI Joe books, Larry, I think, is back on it. For that
Yeah,
series.
I think they're continuing with 301 with Larry Hama and whoever else was drawing it. And they're gonna continue that and start some new GI Joe books. But yeah, they're keeping going with that old Marvel numbering still.
But when you were saying that you bought GI Joe #1, it's like, yeah, I bought that off the rack,
Yeah.
off the spinner rack, and Transformers as well. I picked up Transformers, and mainly because they were tie-ins to TV shows, and that was kind of like, oh, this is part of something. And I remember getting those, and it's like I bought those. I wouldn't say I collected them, but it was like I would be buying some books here and there, not really collecting, just like picking up covers that I like. And I think I got GI Joe because it was a #1.
Yes, that's why I got it. I mean, I only bought I was too old for GI Joe. What year did it come out? Like
I want to
82?
say 82.
Yeah, I'd be 16 then. That's too old for GI Joe.
Yeah,
I
for
didn't
me,
watch any of the
perfect
cartoons.
age. I
And
think I was probably 10 or 11.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so for me, that was right up my alley.
right.
Because my
Six,
first set of books were either cartoon related or, the young kids books. So Transformers, GI Joe, Star Wars. So that was like what I was buying. And like if I saw it, I bought it. And then I don't even think this was even before I discovered polybags.
yeah,
So I was tossing everything into like a large shoebox.
yeah,
And that was how my first collection was. And it was funny because you mentioned before about having it in bags and not boarded. And I was watching video of an older comic convention that had to be probably 80s, and you could see where it's like all the books in the boxes were all just free range books, and then the ones that would have been expensive were bagged.
yeah. I was
And
just
now,
I was just watching the movie The Lost Boys. I probably watched it last summer. First time I'd seen it since the 80s. There's a scene in the comic shop, and none of the books are in bags. It's like they're all just in boxes. I'm like, oh, those are the old comic book days.
yeah,
Nothing was even
the
in a
only time
bag
you
yet.
would see bags is if it was an expensive book.
Yeah,
And they just it triggered that memory of one of the very early comic book shops I went to here in the Bronx called Fordham Comics. They've been there since the 80s, since I was going to junior high. They were there in that location. Their back issue bins were he had these cabinets. They had to be handmade, so they
right.
weren't in comic book boxes. They were cabinets, and they would just be all loose books,
Yeah.
and you could just flip through them. But the only times you saw them bag before they even was boarded, the bags were the ones that were expensive. And I knew
Yeah.
you had to get the X-Men comic books as soon as possible because they jumped from 60 cents to $3 on the wall. Board within a month. So
Yeah.
you had to get X-Men was like one of those books you had to get it the moment it came out.
This
And
was hot.
what was weird was trying to find the bags for the comics. Those were hard to get for a while.
Yeah.
One of the newsstands would sell them individually for about 10 cents a piece. And they really were 5, but they were 10 cents a piece. And so it's like, you know, do I buy the bags or do I just buy books? Because I may have to sacrifice one book that month to get a bunch of bags to protect the books.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't until, you know, you go into a comic book shop where you could buy a whole 100 packs.
New toy line coming. There must be, since Void Rivals is copyright Hasbro. It's got to be a new toy line. I really liked Invincible. Didn't read Walking Dead, although I want to. Might get those Walking Dead big library editions. Yeah, I read Walking Dead from issue. Jacob Chabot must have the most read issues of Walking Dead 1 and 2, because he had Walking Dead 1 and 2 back in the bullpen in our Marvel Comics days, and everybody at Marvel read Jacob Chabot's copies of Walking Dead 1 and 2. Then issue 3 was the one that got on my pull list, and issue 1 at that time was like $20. I was like, "There's no way I'm paying $20 for a comic that came out 3 months ago." Not that I saw one for $20. That was just the price in general. But I should have done that. Walking Dead zombies are technically in the Sergeant Slaughter multiverse universe now. I saw Sergeant Slaughter at Madison Square Garden when I was 9 years old. New Kirkman book. Hey, Optimus Prime, quit all that downloading. Optimus Prime. Yeah, I don't know the Transformers well enough to know which Transformer was Jetfire. If you know who Jetfire is, I do not.
Okay, yeah. Jetfire. He actually came from a different toy line than the rest, than all of the other Transformers, and he's a big spaceship that serves as, and his main function is as a carrier.
Ah. Okay. Well, he's the one who they woke up after many, many years.
Jetfire is usually portrayed as a guy who flip-flops between the Decepticons and the Autobots.
He doesn't bother to save our 2 people who are who are stuck on this planet, the enemy mine guys.
Yeah, I can't remember if he has a problem with humans. Occasionally, there are Autobots who have problems with humans, and then Optimus Prime scolds them.
With the Transformers, for those who don't know, was a toy line that Hasbro's currently doing, but before that they were Japanese lines of various toy lines that transformed. Yeah. So if you had a Transformer that was a vehicle, that was one series called Diclonus. Then you had another ones that if they were miniatures, like a camera or like Soundwave jukebox, that was a different set of toys, which was part of the, I believe, the Micro Men line. So they had a couple of different toy lines, and they were all put together by the same toy company, and then they would basically merge them together to be this Transformer stuff. Jetfire,
but not Jetfire.
Jetfire was part of a different line, which eventually would become across Robotech. So for a while, when they were doing stuff with Jetfire, whether it was in a cartoon or in the comic books, Jetfire can turn into like 3 different portions because it was part of that Robotech. So he could be in the comic books and the cartoons. He can either be the jet or the robot, but not the third in between, because that in between change was part of the Robotech universe. So as a toy, you could turn them into that, but they weren't allowed to show it. And for a while, Jetfire could be used sometimes, or couldn't, because of the different copyrights that went on with Robotech.
And the big reveal in the comic book, when they finally take their masks off, they look exactly like each other. Except one's got a red gem on his forehead and one's got a green gem. So there's some more heavy-handedness of it. It's like, we're mortal enemies, but we're really the same. So I imagine that all has to do with the toy line.
You know that trope.
Hasbro eventually did come out with triple changers. The Decepticons had Astro Train, and what was the other triple changer? I forget.
You had Springer.
Yeah, that was an Autobot.
Which is an Autobot who was first shown in the movie. And he's actually my favorite Transformer. And I think it's just because he's green and he's a triple changer.
Are you going to buy any of the new G.I. Joe Transformer books from Kirkman?
Now that I know that they're out, I wasn't sure who was getting the license.
Yeah, no, we just talked about this like a couple weeks ago because we'd heard like over the winter that Kirkman got the license. And then we heard like a month ago that no one knows who got the license. It was like, what happened to? And now here's the first Kirkman book, and it's like, oh, okay. Right. Well, like, what was that? Well,
and I would have picked it up if I knew it was part of it.
Yeah, I think it was. Like, it was under ordered because no one knew it was part of it. Is the thing.
So I would, I'll probably pick up the first issue just to see what they're like.
Tit Goblin is making me falling asleep on the bus jokes with on the Astro train. Yeah, I have no idea if it got hot or not, but they were saying I was on at the shop early Wednesday morning, and they're saying I think it's hot. We're not sure yet. Oh, here's something interesting. I was talking to a guy at the comic shop this past Wednesday who I didn't know, never talked to before, he was X-Men and Avengers #1 off the stands when they came out. He's like, I never forget it. September 10th, he went over to the store and he got both of those. He was like, and I was talking to him about it, and because I asked him, because I think we've discussed this on our show, what it was like. He said Stan Lee's hype had no effect on him. Matter of fact, at that time, he was a young kid, I don't know, 8 or 10. He was more into DC at the time, and he was actually annoyed that the Marvel monster books all got filled with superhero books because he loved the Marvel monster books. But then after buying the early Marvel superhero stuff, he was like, yeah, this stuff's not bad. That's when, and he kept buying more of it. So it was the quality of the books and not Stan Lee's hype that kept him coming back for more. But he said he was annoyed that the monster books were ending. Those were his favorite from Marvel.
Well, the monsters themselves were disappearing. They still did science fiction, but the monsters were already gone by the time they did the switch on the double books.
Mm-hmm. So we must have been disappointed for a while. But I found that interesting because we were talking about that guy who wrote Chris Geruso that email at one time who bought stuff off the.
Yeah, because it's like think about it where we're kind of spoiled with social media. You can find things all over the place. But back then, the only way you're going to read about Stan's hype is in the Marvel books already.
Right.
So
the only way you're going to know about a Marvel comic is by buying a Marvel comic.
Exactly, because there's no, as far as I was aware of, there was no other outlet. Like, I don't know if there was a collectible. There were fanzines out, of course.
Right, yeah. I don't know how easy those would be to get.
But I don't know. That's the thing.
I just have no idea.
I think they're regional.
Yeah.
Kind of local. So.
And I know what would happen, too, is once Marvel started publishing addresses with the readers' letters, they used to write back and forth to each other.
Right.
Which is send each other their families.
Now. But back then, it was just people were writing to each other. So
Yeah.
maybe that was the hype at that time was having
Right.
read this, and I believe clubs were made after a while too.
Right.
Well, there there already was some interaction because of the EC fans.
Right.
And the EC fans even went to science fiction conventions. The science fiction people didn't want the weird comic book people there. But before Phil Suling started doing New York City Comic Con, there already were people getting together,
Right.
at least on a local level, to exchange comics and do those fanzines.
Hmm. And this
Yeah,
guy was from Brooklyn too, Bensonhurst. I think he said he grew up around there. So I found that interesting.
because I always found it interesting hearing people talk about, people used to trade comics and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which I never really had that interaction. What I've had was I was like given comics back in high school. I'm on my way home from school. I'm on the subway train and having a conversation with my friend Kevin. We were both into comics, and we went to the high school of art and design, but we were on the same train line to come home on the 5 train. One day we were just talking about comics, and there was an older gentleman. It was like, "Hey, you guys like comics?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Let me give you some comics." So we followed him off the train, went to his house. This is wild, but Kevin didn't know him. He knew him from the neighborhood, so he kind of was aware of him. But yeah, we went to his house, and he just gave us a bunch of comics that he just didn't want anymore. So Kevin took like the cool Batman books, and I took Spider-Man, whatever it was else left, and it was like, back then, yeah, I was a stupid kid. Sure, I'll go to your house and pick up some comics.
If you follow me to my white, if you follow me to my white window tinted window van, there are the.
As long as it said, "Hey kids, comics," I probably would have got into the van also. So I do not recommend that, but it was actually pretty cool that this guy gave us a portion of his collection because he didn't want them anymore, and he just wanted to give it to someone who would appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I've gotten books like that, and I've never really traded books with my friends. What would end up happening is like I would give a trade paperback, and then after a while, it's like, "Can I get that one back?" And then we would like trade back and forth. I did that a lot with a buddy of mine who was we traded back Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle books. It was always like, "Here, you can get them back." So we went back and forth and all like that. But never really traded. Here's my Hulk for a Spider-Man book.
We would do that every now and then.
Yeah. Would you even is it book per book or characters? One Hulk equals 2 Spider-Man.
Whatever you could negotiate. You knew what the other guy liked. He knew what you liked.
Okay.
In general, occasionally we trade with strangers, and then there was negotiate. Like the story I always tell about the Teen Titans I got, where the kid showed up. The bike racks that have that spring on them that holds stuff on the back wheel of your bike. He had the Teen Titans like loose in one of those springs, like crushing the books. And I was like, and that was just, I don't even know where, that even must have been early high school or maybe late junior high, so 8th, 9th grade, somewhere around. I just heard that's when the Teen Titans were first hot. And for a while, I forget which year, the Perez Wolfman Teen Titans, and I had just heard, and once again, it was before so it must have been before '81 when the comic shop opened up. I had no way of getting the first few. They were hot. I started Teen Titans with like issue 4 or 5 because I wasn't a DC guy, but Perez was doing it, so I picked it up. And I just heard around the school that these kids were looking to trade some Teen Titans for X-Men. And I happened to have duplicates of X-Men, stuff in the 130s. And so I don't, like I said, I don't even remember where I talked to them. I just remember him showing up like down the street from me with them in that crushed in that bike. And I was just like, oh, because mine, of course, were in beautiful condition. I was just like, oh man, but all I could do, I was like, I guess I'm trading them for them. What can I do? Me yelling at this dumb kid is not going to make those books in any better condition. So I still have those issues of the Teen Titans with crumples on the front of them. but that's one that must have been one of the last trades I did of any note. And that was probably, I don't know, when did the Teen Titans first come out? 81? 1980?
80.
I could look it up. I don't recall. I think 84.
It was that late?
No, that's when the Baxter series started.
Okay.
Okay, that's new.
The New Teen Titans started in 1980.
1980. So it was probably this is probably in 1980. I was either in my last semester of junior high and my first semester of high school, maybe even I must have heard about it in school, so I had to be in school. I said I never saw these kids before, never saw them after. I don't even know how I got the word, besides the kid network of trading comic books. But like I said, that was a late date for trading comic books. It went on a lot more in the late 70s when I was younger. And here's a comic book that took a real turn on me this issue. Declan Shalvey's Old Dog. What issue is it? Issue 5. And I've talked about this one before, where I said it's a story about an old spy who's kind of dragged back into doing spy work. The old James Bond coming out of retirement for one last job thing. So far, it's been well done, but that's been what it is. There's not a lot of surprises in a story like that. There's spy stuff going on. Well, last issue, he got his arm stuck in a door, and the guy who stuck his arm in the door was his old protege, guy he used to train. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You can get out of that easily." And so the old dog ripped his own arm off, which appeared to be I was like, he's got a robot arm that got torn off. So in this issue, there's a lot of it's talking where he's getting interrogated by his own side. And a lot of it we got talking, he's missing an arm. And then all of a sudden, his daughter, who he doesn't get along with, I think it is trying to break into this place, and things are weird are happening. But all of a sudden, the old dog turns into this monstrous creature, and starts it. He's the one. Where is he? He's this giant. Oh, well, there's the double-page spread of it. He turns into this giant tentacled monster. And it's like, where did that come from? I'm like, all of a sudden, this old spy come out of retirement turns into The Thing horror story. So I have no idea where this is going now. Just none. Because at the end, his daughter calmed him down, and he turned back into himself with a new arm, too, by the way. I guess he's a spy who can transform into a giant tentacle monster. It was just a weird twist in the story. I was not expecting that.
And for that to happen in issue 5.
Issue 5.
That's wild.
It reminded me a little of Kirkman and Invincible. Have you guys ever read Invincible?
Yeah.
I've only watched the cartoon. I never actually read the book.
Okay. Well, the big twist in Invincible, you've seen the cartoon, you probably know. It turns out his father is the villain of the piece. And I forget who gave him he was originally Kirkman says he originally planned in issue 25 for it to be revealed that his father is the villain of the piece. But I forget who it was, Eric Stevenson or the publisher or something. It was like, you better make that issue 5, or you might not be around until issue 25 or something like that. So he did it earlier and made it. So maybe this is a twist like that. I don't know. Issue 5. All of a sudden, you find out he's a giant tentacle monster, not just an old spy complaining that he can't get the job done like he used to.
Yeah, it's like
What are we gonna-
it's a great reveal.
Yeah, it's fun. Never traded comics, but my brother gave me a bunch and a few coverless ones. And now I get, Sarge TD sending me some comics every now and then that I make videos out of. I got a lot of comics this week. I think besides The Sickness, which was my 13th, I got 12 comics this week. Because as I was walking out the door, because I usually pay for my comics in cash, because I can just budget better in cash. If I'm using a credit card, it's like, it's not real money. Sure. And then the bill comes at the end of the month and you're like, how much is that? But if I'm using cash, I only got so much money to spend. But as I'm walking at I guess Wilson wasn't here last week. Last week I had only a few comics because for whatever reason the Image comics didn't make it to my shop. So I had some of last week's Image comics and plus this week's comics to pick up, which only added up to about 7 or 8 comics, I think. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw an extra 20 in my wallet just because I think there's some comics coming out this week that I wanted to try but didn't pre-order. And one of them, where is it? Speaking of G.I. Joe 200, 300, I picked up Fem Force issue 200.
Oh wow, I haven't seen an issue of Fem Force in
Exactly.
Wow.
I went in, saw this on the shelf, and went, Fem Force 200, they still publish that? And Roy, the owner, went, yeah, and I ordered a couple extra shelf copies just in case someone walked in and said, Fem Force 200, they still print that? Maybe I'll buy. I said, you know what? That's me.
I would have picked it up as well if I saw that. Wow.
I was like, and the only other issue of Fem Force I have, I looked it up in my database, it's somewhere buried in a closet, is Fem Force like Super Special #1 from sometime in the 80s. I haven't seen it in 30 years, but it's in a box buried somewhere. But I was like, all right, I'll buy issue 200 of Fem Force. Why? Just like I bought issue 300 of G.I. Joe just because. I gotta say, it was pretty well done. It was a fun comic. Let me show you a little of the artwork up close.
Bill Black's still alive?
Yeah, he's doing the inking on this. He's not the primary. He's got 2 editors working with him. He's credited as the inker. The drawing is very nice. The coloring is very nice and bright. The story is kind of cool. It's an old school throwback kind of story. But the only thing that wasn't nice about it was the price. It's $5.95 for 20 pages. So it was like, it's fine for a one-off, but I'm not buying any more issues of Fem Force for $6. It's just,
right.
Not. It's not going to be. But it was fun. It was fun realizing that Fem Force still exists. Let's see. It says here, art Eric Coyle, story, inks, and colors Bill Black, and edit the Hikes. I guess it's a husband and wife team here of the Hikes. Publisher, editor-in-chief, Mark G. Heike, Heikes. And the executive editor is Stephanie H. Heike. Editor emeritus, Bill Black. So I guess he's not even in. They're putting it together. He's doing the inks and colors. But yeah, he's still, but nice comic. Nice comic. Let's see, he's asking me about how was the sickness. I liked it. If you read the same creative team did Black Stars Above from Vault, and it's that same creepy feeling, that same weird, creepy. It's not really about the plot; it's about the creepiness, and it's creepy. So I'm, like Black Stars Above. I'm pretty sure is what made me, put that one, subscribe to that one because I'm it's funny. I didn't realize when these came in the mail that they were the Black Stars Above creative team. It wasn't until I read the whole thing through and went, oh, that was really creepy, and then got to the end where they mentioned Black Stars Above in like the letters page or whatever. I was like, oh, that's why it seems familiar and creepy. But I must have known it when I ordered it, though. I just forgot because I'm old. And you order something in March, it finally comes in June. Who remembers he even ordered it? I'm glad they sent me an email with the tracking number on it.
I got quite a few books because I haven't been to the comic book shop in a few weeks. So it's like, so I went in to pick up basically the back issues that I had sitting there, and then I picked up some new books on the shelf. So for the back issue stuff, we have Dawn of, and I haven't read any of these.
Okay.
So Dawn of Superman #5.
Let's get you solo so we can see those covers.
Okay. Giant Kaku #3.
3. That's the last issue of that too.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Only 3 issues. The art, I got it too this week because it came out last week, but Image Comics didn't come out. The art, Scott did such a good job. I was going to show a couple pages of the art because they're like, wow, he jammed so much in there.
Well, and I love that cover. It is a beautiful done cover.
Yeah, this issue we get the giant monster robot fight and the solution to the fight. We can't even say in polite company.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pages before I put them up because this monster has some things hanging out. So I want to make sure. Can't show that. Here, fold this one. Some great looking art in it.
They just drew the hell out of everything. There's so much. And there's a lot of clarity to the drawing, too. Unlike some other stuff I've been reading recently where I haven't liked the inking because the inking doesn't give clarity. That one, there's a lot of clarity to it.
So much I can't show. But I get an idea of how he defeats the monster.
If you don't like to see giant monster penis, then don't buy this one.
It's quite a surprise. And then going back to just regular monsters, Godzilla, Here They Be Dragons.
That's a nice cover. Here There Be Dragons, right? Who's doing the inside?
Okay, so it's written by Frank Thierry, so we know him from Marvel. Anika Miranda. So it's like one person's pencil and ink, and then it's colored by Eva de la Cruz. Let's show some artwork.
Ah, pretty neat.
So it looks like there's some conquistadors and some pirates.
Yeah, it looks like it takes place during the age of sailing ships.
Yes. So I would imagine that Godzilla shows up and they think of him as a dragon.
Yep. That was actually written on old maps. Here There Be Dragons. That's where the name comes from. We're parts of the ocean where, they just thought were dangerous. cool covers. Here There Be Dragons would be put in that part of the map. Oh, wow.
So some great covers. This is the only one that I saw. Well, actually, it was already pulled for my bin, for my pull list. Next, we have Spider-Man number 9
Versus Electro.
versus Electro.
That's the JR Jr. one?
No, this one I believe is the Mark Bagley one.
The Bagley one? Okay. I thought it was a Bagley cover, but I thought.
Yes, this is the Bagley book.
Is that Amazing
Bagley.
Spider-Man?
This one's just Spider-Man.
That was just Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And there was a new Hulk book out this week, too, right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did pick that one up. That is part of the new books that was not on my pull list, but I picked it up because it's an issue number 1 of Hulk. I understand that something. The Age of Monsters have begun, so I guess they may be going back to some of the monster books that we were talking about earlier.
Because it was the last Hulk series was like Spaceship Hulk, right?
Trying to find the credits page.
He somehow got kicked out into space on a spaceship or something.
This is an interesting style for the letters page. I mean, for the credits page. So the artwork's by Nick Klein. Matthew Wilson is the colorist, and Corey Pett is the letterer.
Nick Klein.
It's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Nick Klein, is he the guy who did Drifter that I like so much? That might be him.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's him.
That's him?
There was a comic called Drifter a few years ago. I forget how many, 12 issues or so from Image that I really enjoyed. He was the artist on it. So that's what he's doing, drawing some Hulk.
They're doing some monstrous looking Hulk. So, reminds me of some of the older stuff. I never read like those books like Immortal Hulk, so I do not know.
Yeah, I didn't either.
What the Hulk is going through now.
I read an issue or two of Immortal Hulk just to check it out, just like I read an issue or two of the Spaceship Hulk that came after it, just to check it out. But
so because they're number 1 issues is why I picked it up. The story that I'm looking forward to and that I have been enjoying has been Clobbering Time.
Oh yeah, Steve Scroce. Right?
Steve Scroce, and I think he does the pencils and inks, and he's writing it too. Yep, Steve Scroce. So it's the team up book with the Thing and various characters, and I've been enjoying it a lot. Thing is one of those characters that I do like, and I like when he had his own books.
Right.
There was the early stuff that I was collecting when he had his own title. He was one of those characters that I went back and like picked up some of the Marvel 2-in-1s, and again, team up books I do enjoy.
Oh, Tatman says Grunge Hulk. LOL.
Everyone's most hated comic book, Amazing Spider-Man.
Is that the JR Jr. one?
This is the JR Jr. one, yes.
Oh, that is the JR Jr. one.
This is supposed to be the JR Jr. one, but this particular issue is done by Ed McGuinness and Mark Farmer. Okay. Zed Wells, the writer. So this particular issue, this is the JR Jr. book. This issue is in it. He's not in it.
Right.
Then we did Superman. And then the newer books that were not on the pull list, but I picked it up, is Danny Keats' Ghost Rider number 2.
Okay.
I really enjoyed number 1. For me, it was just like the 90s book. Self-contained story. They're going more into the lore of the creation of the bicycle. And like the what gives the bike powers is the gas tank's cover.
Okay.
That's where the power comes from. So I believe this series actually goes into like the creation of that and what's going on. I haven't read the second issue, but this is the Ghost Rider from the '90s that I enjoyed. And when I was coloring comics, he was the Ghost Rider that was in the few issues that I colored of Wolverine.
Okay.
So I have a connection to him in that way.
Huh.
Next book, I got two more books left. Extreme Venomverse, which
Extreme.
so it's not only extreme, it's Venom's version of the.
So is Venom a hero now?
He's still kind of like in between because so many different people have had the symbiote.
Ah.
So some of them are heroes, some of them are villains, because there's been, Flash Thompson with Agent Venom.
All right.
And he's also was for a while Space Venom.
Huh.
So that's when he was good in that respect. But then again, at one point in time, you had the Mac Gargan, who's the Scorpion, was Venom for a while. So he was bad. So it really depends. Eddie Brock Venom is still that lethal protector title. So as long as you're not Spider-Man, I guess he's a hero. So Extreme Venomverse is very similar to like the Into the Spider-Verse, where you have Venom from other dimensions and whatnot. Something apparently is killing Venoms, and so they are supposed to team up together. I only read the first book that introduced a bunch of the Venoms, and they were very interesting stories. So I want to see. So I got to catch up on the next set before I can read the third issue to find out what the event is. But to me, it was something. Yeah, it's not unique because Spider-Man's already doing it, but doing it from Venom's aspect or angle, I thought was interesting. And then I picked up Ultimate Invasion #1. This particular cover is the cover that spoke to me because I just liked the design of
that's
it.
pretty cool.
So Miles Morales.
Is this their latest crossover?
This is what is the bringing back the Ultimate Universe.
Ah.
What I understand. So it is Hickman and let's see if I can find the credits page.
Is that a Marcos Martin cover?
I do not know who did the cover. The name is tiny on here, and I don't have my glasses in front of me. The name is also, I believe, a symbol. So it's Jonathan Hickman doing the art, doing the writing, and it's penciled by Brian Hitch. So it's the guys who worked on the original Ultimate books. So because they're back to do that was the reason why I picked it up. Cover artist, there was like 7 covers. So who was the person you said?
I said Marcos Martin. I don't think it was him though. I just heard. I don't know. I heard him associated with it.
The name not on here.
Yeah, I forget who it was. I think they call those negative space covers, don't they?
There's a whole bunch of covers were done.
Oh yeah.
I think like 7 covers that I saw on the shop. But beautiful Hickman, beautiful artwork.
Oh yeah.
So
Brian Hitch.
Looking forward to it. I am very curious on what they're doing. Again, bringing back the Ultimate Universe. It was just one of those things that was funny how they made a big deal to destroy it, and then now it comes back. So
no one was actually sick. We're talking about the book the sickness. So we're all okay here. Paulo's just a little sleepy. Isn't Hulk back to Immortal Hulk style? And yeah, I don't know. I think they've been finding different themes for the Hulk. Like I said, there was Spaceship Hulk before this, and Immortal Hulk before that, and there may have been a different one. Pearl Jam Hulk. Grunge Hulk.
It wasn't a grunge Hulk, but Juggernaut J2 was wearing grunge. Was that what did they call that universe? That was the Annex universe, which was Spider-Girl was part of.
Hey, look, I see Chris Geruso down there. He's always all sideways and upside down.
Welcome, Chris.
Hello
What's
there.
up?
What's up, guys? What's happening?
We're talking
Folks.
comics. Can you believe it?
And we already talked Transformers.
Mm. The new
Transformers.
Robert Kirkman Transformers book is out, even though it's not a Transformers book. There's just a special guest appearance that nobody knew was coming.
Except the people who read the articles the week before.
Yeah, there was articles about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
About that particular title. What was the name of that title? Void?
That didn't help
Void.
the comic shop owners.
Void something something.
Void Rivals. I actually bought
Void.
it. There we go. Void Rivals.
I got a copy waiting for me.
So you think?
Smitty got one.
Unless
There's
it's sold
one down the
out.
hall.
Oh, Smitty got one.
I don't think there's anything I
he
can
was
do.
Making a joke. Okay. Damn, that's a lot of Transformers. Yes, he's got a lot of everything back there, Chris. But another comic I pulled off the shelf this week is yet another Frank Frazetta book. Frank Frazetta's Mothman. This is one when it came on final order cutoff. I didn't know if I wanted to get or not because I don't necessarily want another $5 Frank Frazetta book. But Dawn Attack is ending in an issue, so I figured I'd give this one a try since I flipped through it and liked the art. And I gotta say, I'm gonna buy one more issue of it to decide. I actually liked the art, and the story was kind of amusing. It's almost a comedy. The basic, I don't know if you guys know anything about the Mothman, the cryptid. He's got a second print on the way of Void Rivals. Oh yeah, back in my day, Pearl Jam Grunge Hulk was called Pit. He tied an onion on his wallet chain belt. There you go. Because it was the style back in the day. We couldn't get the Spanish onions because of the war. But this, like I said, this was almost a comedy, and it was pretty funny. I remember Mothman is this cryptid, but in this story, it turns out it opens up with a guy and a girl and trying to get busy with this girl in the pickup truck, and then they hear a boom, and it turned out that a spaceship crashed. And then we have these two rival families, like the Hatfields and the McCoys, only they're a lot smaller. Rival families who live next door to each other on farms, and one thinks the other's up to shenanigans, so they all grab their shotguns to go out and see who's cooking meth out in the woods. It better not be our neighbors, the so-and-so. Meanwhile, it was the Mothman. I guess this is some kind of spacesuit. He crashed the ship. And it turns out the Mothman is really sort of, you get the idea, he's this sort of loser teenager who stole the family's spaceship and then crashed it. So he's like, oh crap! He's like, these people are crazy around here. I got to get my. So he tries to fix the ship himself. He calls back home and to the family who he stole the ship from, and they're like, we can't get down there for another 4 days. So meanwhile, these two families with their shot, and meanwhile, the Mothman also stole the dog of one of the families somehow. So then the two families are, and one of the family members has already died in this story. So there's consequences that happened in this story. The one family, to see who was cooking the meth, flew a drone up with a grenade attached to it and ended up trying to drop the grenade on the Mothman. And he killed his neighbor instead. So this feud is just going to get worse. But it was very much done with a sense of humor. So it was kind of like, what? I did not expect that. I expected something like a horror book, but there was more comedy than anything else, and it was well done. So I'm going to get a second issue of it just to see what's going on. And the one guy even got out a bear killing gun and to shoot through a spaceship or something. It's just nuts. It was just nuts. But a fun issue, Mothman. I recommend it. Yeah, Opus books are pretty solid books. They really are. I mean, so far I've liked Death Dealer and Dawn Attacks, and now I'm liking the Mothman. And I'm really surprised because I'm not that big a Frank Frazetta fan. So, but there's, there's actually very little Frank Frazetta in them. They're just the covers or whatever. So you drawing some more Lobster Clawson there, Chris? You inking? You coloring?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What page are you on?
125.
Ah, you're chugging along. What's the total page count on this book?
236.
230. Comics haven't broke you, right?
I mean,
Did you see that hashtag on Twitter from last week?
I did, but I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know. Was I ever not broke?
There is that.
You can't be broken. You're silly putty.
What?
The silly putty of comics. You cannot be broken.
The silly putty of comics.
Is that?
You got a new nickname?
Is that what you're calling me there on the show?
Well,
I think, but we are now.
I think if you want to work in comics, you have to be silly putty.
Yeah, there's a little bit to that.
That sounds like some kind of Ted Lasso wisdom.
What do we get? From Tit Goblin. Hey, Chris, I picked up $12 books of Savage Dragon. You're my new influencer now. Well, Tit Goblin says that the shows with Chris are the best shows. So.
Well, that's nice to say, but it can't. Come on, it can't be true.
Let's see, what else did I get? Oh, here is I got the same one that Wilson just showed. Issue 3 of Cockchew that Scott Koblish did. And like I said, the art in this just blew me away. He just put so much, there's so much drawing in this. With so much clarity. Like when I've been continuing reading that big volume of Black Science. And I'm enjoying it, but Matteo Scalera is another one of these artists who I'm like, give me some clarity sometimes, because a lot of his inks are about obscuring things. And sometimes I can't follow the story. I'm like, what's going on in this panel? I can't tell. 2 panels later, I know what's going on again, but so sometimes I'm just like, Matteo, come on, give me some clarity. And I think that's a problem with a lot of comics since the art of inking kind of went away. Part of the inker's job was always to make things clear, and that just doesn't always happen these days. But Scott Koblish made things clear. There was lots of clarity in Cockchew. Let's see, what else did I get? There was a lot of clarity, too, in Don't Spit in the Wind, issue 3 out of 4. And this is one where the art and the vibe are just good. I mean, this. Let me show you a little of this art. It takes place on this planet. I think it's Earth. Where in the future it's just a garbage dump.
Sounds like the way things are right now, if you ask me.
Oh my goodness. You're breaking up when you yell. Oof.
I'm sorry.
It was ruining. You need a better mic if you're going to do comedy, okay?
I won't try again.
You can try again, just don't yell.
Well, you can start like. So what's the deal with microphones?
But I just really like sort of the vibe of this book. It's about these garbage men kind of trying to clean up the planet. They're just like needle in a haystack kind of thing. And there's these other people walking around who worship the garbage, who they didn't know were there, and are just messing everything up. And there's really not that much of a plot, but the vibe, the art and the vibe are so much fun that I'm really, with issue 1, I wasn't sure if I wanted on my pull list or not. I ordered one more issue in issue 2, and I still wasn't sure. Now with issue 3, I'm really liking it, but I also found out there's only 4, so that made it easy to buy the next 2. But yeah, issue 3 was really good. Just this crazy garbage man, wild drawing vibe. Have you bought any good comics lately, Chris?
No, I'm behind on picking up my my supply. Like I said, I have Void Rivals waiting for me.
When are you planning on going to get them? Any plans?
Nothing planned.
Isn't the shop like right down the street from you, or is it the shop right down the street from you don't go to, and you go to another one? I can't remember the story.
It is the latter.
Ah.
Kind of worn out my welcome at the local one.
How did you wear out your welcome?
That's not something I'm eager to discuss publicly in an open forum like this.
Okay, then we'll let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah.
But I was just listening to. There's another YouTuber I listen to. What's his name? Arkham Comics. He is in Las Vegas. And I've been watching his pull list videos, whatever, for years. And he's one of these guys who also sometimes runs a little booth in a flea market and sells comics. So he hasn't been around in a few months. He just came back and to show some stuff. And he's one of these guys. He buys comics for his personal collection. And he also buys comics to sell at his booth when he does it at the local flea market. Well, he was telling a story about how there's this one comic shop he doesn't want to go back to anymore because the owner of the comic shop, who has a reputation of being a bit of a cantankerous character to begin with, started yelling at him because he didn't like
because he resents him for selling comics.
Yes. He yelled at him for selling comics that he bought at his shop. Just like, what? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But
that's not the least bit surprising to me.
You know, it's really not, because when I hear the amount of people over the years who I've heard say, my comic shop won't order me that, it makes me go, what?
I have a story of a couple of rival comic shop owners, and one guy said about the other, "Oh man, I don't like that guy at all." I mean, he'll sell a comic book to anybody. and he meant that as like that's a bad quality in a guy who sells comics. Like you don't just sell comics to just anybody that wants them.
Obviously, businessman wasn't his strength. It's like my comic shop, they'll order anything I ask them to. Matter of fact, just I think it was two or 3 weeks ago, they were like, did we miss anything for you? I'm like, I don't think so. It's like, because they were putting in order to mycomicshop.com. What they do is, if they miss a comic, he sells a lot of his like overstock to my Texas mycomicshop.com. He ships them a lot of their overstock that they then sell for cheap, and they give him credit for it. So then if he like misses an issue of something, For in someone, they get shorted, they get pull lists. You didn't get Batman 350 2 months ago. They'll get it from mycomicshop.com and sell it to you for cover price. Just like, and they do that sometimes, like, because if they can't like reorder it from Diamond or whatever. And sometimes what happens, someone comes in looking for, do you have the latest Batman? And they're like, we sold out of that, but hold on. Chris has got that in his pull list. He doesn't come in he's not due in for another 2 months. So they'll take Chris's copy, sell it to you, and then get another copy and put it in Chris's book. And one of the ways they do that is through mycomicshop.com. So they'll even do that. They'll even order from another comic shop to get you your book. So when I hear people saying, my shop won't order that for me, I'm like, they just don't want to be bothered. That's all it is.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories where there was one shop where I heard that you can't buy DC Comics there. The guy didn't like DC Comics, so he wasn't going to sell DC Comics. And it's like, if that's the business you want to run, then fine, but it's so weird. And to what Chris said about, that can you believe they sell it to anybody? I did know a comic shop owner who would not sell certain items if he felt that person didn't deserve getting it.
Yeah.
He can't, I'm not selling him that statue. He doesn't deserve that statue. He's not worthy enough to have that statue. And it's like, wait, what? You'd rather have the statue sitting in your comic shop collecting dust than get your money for it because you feel that person is not worthy. And that blows my mind. It's like, I guess if that's what you want to run your store, then fine. But, there are weird quirks to some people. The comic book shop owner that I worked for, he would just sell it to anybody. He didn't care. As long as he made a sale, that's all he was worried about.
Yeah. I know my comic shop owner, the guys who work there, are annoyed at the prospectors, as they're called, who are just looking for books they can resell. And they don't usually, they sell them the books, but they're just annoying because they're not they're just there. They're looking through the books. They're going up. It's like they're not even social. They're not even part of the community. They're not even. They're just looking for a book they can sell, and that's it. Don't bother them. It's kind of like, they just look through the back, and you're just like, he's just one of those prospectors. And often they buy nothing. Right. There've been guys who've been in the back prospecting for 2-3 hours and buy nothing.
Yeah, like, they didn't find any keys.
Right. For cheap.
Yeah.
There were some young guys who bought the Transformers stuff right out of there because they've got a little case. They don't have a lot of expensive books there. They've got a few dozen, maybe 50. And they've got, they've got a case that's a counter that's maybe 3 feet wide with $100 and $200 comic books in there, whatever. And they don't usually sell a lot out of the case because it's mostly people like me coming in, but occasionally get a little bit like it was just, I think 2 weeks ago, they sold the Transformers #1, I think it was, right out of the case to these young Transformer fans. They must have been in their early 20s. Came in looking for Transformers books. Any Transformers books. I was like, okay.
The movie just came out, so that might have been
could have been
bump to it.
Video Homicide worked, but wanted to pop in and say, hey fellows, hello there. Formerly Bluntzilla, Ricky. He used to Video Homicide. He does a lot of YouTube videos. You can check out his channel. A lot of horror movies, and he started drawing comic books and stuff. He's got some zines for sale too that I got to pick up. But he used to hang out with us way back in the day of Jean Paul Ace Peters hangouts on Google Hangout. No groaning in my store. Do you all think that comics are too expensive in general? Yeah. I've gone digital
Yep.
to lower my spend, buying paper only after reading first and determining if I like it enough to keep in my collection. Yeah. I mean, I can't agree with you. I've gotten positive comments when I go up. The one I spent $6 on Fem Force number 200, a 20-page comic. I enjoyed it. Think I got my $6 worth. I'm not going to pay $6 for another issue. It was just like a one-off purchase, and I also am sitting here debating whether to put another $5 comic on my pull list or not. Now, my other opus, Frank Frazetta one, is about to leave with the next issue. But I'm always like, yeah, do I really want to pay $5 for a comic? I'm not sure. So yeah, I think comics are too expensive. And like I said, often I will try stuff digitally first. Just some stuff, like I'll read stuff on Hoopla. That's how I got Ice Cream Man on my list. They had the first trade paperback on Hoopla, the library app. So I said, you know what? I've been wanting to try this book. Let's try reading the trade paperback on digitally on Hoopla. And I did, and I put it on my pull list. So I'll do that too. But I'll also, like this week, I just wanted some extra comics, so I put an extra 20 in my wallet. Now, I'm willing to spend, a certain amount every week on comics, but I certainly can't spend $50 every week. Nope. Let's keep it to maybe half that. Yeah, DC Black Label $8.99. Yikes! Exactly. That's too. I mean, I'm not buying DC books to begin with, but I was buying those. Oh God, who are they? The one Mike Martz left from.
Aftershock.
Aftershock. I was buying those Aftershock graphic novels for. They were around $8, I think, for 44 pages. But I just liked the format of those too. But are comics expensive? Jeruso? He thinks so too. I can guarantee you.
Yeah, of course. Comics are for rich people, not for me.
Toys are for poor people, obviously.
Yeah.
When you spend all your money on toys, you've got no money left over for comics.
That's right.
I justify the expense of new comics due to the cool social aspect of the shop. Me too. At the shops, the ones I'm half interested in, I get back issue sales after I gave enough new sales to the local stores. Yeah, you can always sell the back issues. I do that too on occasion. But like I said, I like going to the comic shop every week and talking with my friend Rob and talking with that guy this week who bought Avengers and X-Men #1 off the stands new. So I always enjoy talking comics, as you can probably tell from this show. So and I don't buy much else. I really don't.
I need to get back into buying. I have 3 books that I need to buy. There's recently been because the Portuguese edition of Jorge Bess's Frankenstein is already out, and I already have his Dracula. It's going to be a 200-page black and white graphic novel adapting Frankenstein.
Cool. I wonder when my was that Kickstarter Gatsby is going to finally get here. Haven't gotten an email. That's one of the things I don't like about Kickstarters. You never know when things are going to arrive until finally they're like, it's here. What's book number 2, Paulo?
Book number 2, they recently put out a collection of 3 French albums that written by Richard Malka with art by Juan Jimenez. the guy who did the Matt Barons. And so that's so I love Juan Jimenez. So any chance that I have to buy one of his books, I will.
Oh,
And the next one I still have to buy is the Portuguese graphic novel about the second coming of Jesus Christ. The one called "Holy Shit, I'm Back."
Graphic novels and trades are a better deal. Not sure
There's two
why.
out.
Because they're subsidized by the comics. That's why they're a better deal. The comics made the publisher their money. That's why if you look like Brubaker and Phillips' new graphic novel came out this week. That's got a $24 cover price. That's about the price it would cost you to buy the new comics. It's not coming out at $15 because it wasn't subsidized by any comics. I wasn't impressed by Bess's Dracula. Read Alvaro's this week.
No, the problem with the problem you have with the book is the translation.
The artwork is nice.
Oh yeah.
I actually ordered a Mr. X hardcover off of eBay this week for $25. For some reason, I got nostalgic for the Mr. X stuff that I didn't like in the 80s. I still have all my original issues, but up there I also have a Mr. X hardcover of the original volume 1 of the series. Volume 2 of the series, I think it's called The Brides of Mr. X or something like that. I don't think Dean Motter was I don't think anybody involved with the first volume was involved with this volume. And I remember picking up a couple of issues for it and just not liking it. But for some reason, this week, I got nostalgic for it. I was like, oh, I wonder what all of them look like, because it's a whole collection. I'm like, oh, wait, $25, I'll get them. So that's coming sometime soon. The Brides of Mr. X. Because I actually want to do a video looking through that hardcover, just because I want to look through the hardcover. I'm like, if I'm going to look through it, I may as well make a video looking through it. I don't know if you guys have read Mr. X.
I know the.
I've never heard of it.
But I don't
Never heard of it.
Because I want to think. I'm thinking Ditko, but it's not. Ditko is Mr. A. So
No, yeah, it's Dean Motter. The Hernandez brothers did some of it early on. He's a bald guy with. I always. It came out all through the 80s and came out the last decade too from Dark Horse, some more stuff that Dean Motter himself did. I always describe it as it's really kind of a B-level comic with A-level stylishness. Because they were always trying to make it very, very stylish. And the basic idea is it takes place in, what is the name of it? Somnopolis? Radiant City, that's the name. But anyway, there is such a thing as called psychotecture, which is how the architecture of a city affects the well-being of the people in the city. And so they were designing this city to make the people feel good, but something happened and somebody messed with the plans, and now the city was driving people insane. And so Mr. X shows up, who's this mysterious character who nobody knows who he really is.
Is the city the fifth character?
What was that?
Is the city the fifth character?
It could be. The city really is a character. I mean, they do all this architecture, this fancy Art Deco architecture stuff in it. Like I said, it's really trying to be visually stylish. So Mr. X shows up, and no one quite knows what he is. He takes drugs so that he never sleeps, and he's trying to fix the city. Some people think that he's one of the original architects, but they all died, and and there's a mystery going on. And matter of fact, one of the reviews I read of the second volume that I only read a couple issues of, but never liked, was like, for completists only. This series really isn't very good. It doesn't have a lot to do with Mr. X. He's like, he used to be mysterious. In this volume, he's not at all. And I was like, now you're just making me want to read it. The art is.
I'll be the judge of whether or not something isn't worth reading.
Especially since I already judged it wasn't worth reading in the 80s, but now I'm nostalgic for it not being worth reading. And they also said one of the artists on it was a guy named Disraeli, who I know from like 20 years ago from some really nice stuff he did for Dark Horse. But the guy in this review was even like, and this isn't, I don't even know what Disraeli was doing with his art in this. It isn't his usual line work or something. I was like, oh, now I want to see it.
Like, the more someone dislikes a project, I want to know about it.
Yeah, I don't know why I got nostalgic for it, but I did. Yeah, Mr. X was the best. See, like I said, when I actually read Mr. X, it's a B-level comic. It's not the greatest comic ever. It's not but like I said, it's got A-level stylishness. They're just really trying to make it visually stylish, and they succeeded most of the time. Had a problem with Bess's layouts. Beautiful drawings, though.
Yeah, okay, I think I know what you're saying. So George Bess has a tendency to stretch a scene that's only there for ambiance, because it is beautiful.
Right.
So it looks like filler, but it really isn't, because there are a few text bits that are just there as description, since it's a novel, an adaptation from a novel. But the action that's there, that's pretty good. It's easy to follow, so I really don't think that would be a problem with Bess.
And once again, we're back to my reading comics twice thing, where sometimes when I read it the first time through, I don't take the time to get the vibe of, like we said, filler, but it's really there for ambiance. I'm so involved with the plot, I don't let that ambiance sort of roll over me. But the second time through, I do that, and that's why I often like it better the second time through of anything I read. So try reading it another time.
Yeah, but I found that from the first reading.
Like I said, some people get that on the first read. Some people, I don't always. Sometimes I do, but often the second read can be very different than the first. My $30 to $60 a week hour at the shop is the same as dinner out with my friends. Exactly. But it's still expensive, especially considering the people that put work into the books don't get any of that money. They get some of that money, just, not as much as they might deserve. I wrote a letter to Mr. X back in the 80s and got published. Go find my letter. I'm going to do that. I'm going to check that out. I'll have to pull out my original issues. Mr. X had atmosphere. Exactly. It really, which is why I want to make a video just kind of looking through to try and show off some of that atmosphere. And really, my favorite issues of Mr. X, even still visually, are those early Hernandez Brothers issues. Were just so stylish. And what's funny is, I wasn't a fan of Seth's work on Mr. X. Never would I have imagined he'd go on to be one of my favorite cartoonists. Because where I first saw him was on Mr. X. He took over, I don't know when, 8 or 10, and his stuff was really weird and out there. Not like his work he's been doing for himself since then. What are the modern rules on layout? Some artists go crazy, like Lale Rosmo. Others use the old 9-pack. There are no modern rules for layout. There's not John Romita there. Like at Marvel, they used to, there was 2 things that went on. They used to have assistant editor boot camp that Mark Grunwald used to run. So maybe once a year, any new assistant editors who were hired, they'd go over to Mark Grunwald's house or wherever they were holding it. I can't even remember. I don't think it was at the building. I think it was off-site. And Mark Grunwald would give them a handout, and it would be all about making comics. He would teach all the assistant editors about storytelling and making comics. John Romita, and they tried this with the Image guys, and there was a famous. I wasn't there that day, but there's a famous visit that made everybody in the bullpen hate Rob Liefeld because he treated John Romita so poorly. I don't know the story firsthand, and I've long forgotten it. I just remember that day existed. But they used to. John Romita used to have his Romita's Raiders. A lot of people came out of that, where you would apprentice under John Romita, or sometimes when they'd have a young, promising guy in, they'd send him into John Romita, and he'd teach them about comic book storytelling and layouts and this and that.
Like that guy named Jared who appeared on Marvel Age.
There we go. John Romita retired in 96. Mark Grunwald died in 96. And all that went away. And I don't know what was going on over at DC, but I know they used to have something where they teach the young guys something new. There used to be continuity studios too in the 70s and 80s, where a lot of people who would either work for Neil Adams or work in Neil Adams' studio, rent a desk there, and they would all learn how to do comics from each other. I don't think that happens anymore. I think there are no rules for layout. I think there are colleges like Savannah School of Art, who's got a big program, but I don't know how many people go through there. I think it's just catch as catch can these days. Some people study hard and learn comic book layouts on their own. Some never do and just go by instinct. So I think there's no rules anymore, which makes for a lot of bad comic reading. Like I was just complaining about Riley Rismo, some of his layouts and lack of clarity on the ink. Oof. 9 panels used to be the minimum. Now you see most comics going 3 to 5. But yeah, well, they have to draw so much detail these days too.
When was 9 a minimum?
Yeah, I don't know if it was ever
like I
6.
remember 6 being like
6, yeah,
5 or
6
6. Like, yeah.
There were plenty of people doing 9 stuff, but 6. It was Kirby who did 6 all the time, and they would copy him.
And I think Ditko was the one doing 9.
Yeah, Ditko did 9.
And 9 became like repopularized, I think, by Watchmen.
Yeah, Watchmen really popularized it. That's true. But Kirby's 6 was actually a little amount of panels historically. So whittling it down to 6 was like seen as big panels, I remember reading. Let's see, what else do I got? Don't speed into the wind. Oh, I picked up another Archie horror book, which was pretty good. Camp Pickens, where you get to see Archie characters die. Some nice artwork. We got Bug Juice, story by Jordan Morris, line art by Diana Camaro. The Curse of Camp Pickens, story by Blake Howard, line art by Carola Borelli. Down and Out and Death Cursed, story by Tim Seeley, line art by Mike Norton, who I think are the Revival. Didn't they do Revival that I bought for years? I think that's them. Letters by Jack Morelli. Jack Morelli was one of those bullpenners who left just before I got there, but I knew him because he used to come in and do freelance. But these are good, solid comics. These Archie horror ones. They're creepy, and they kill the characters in this. There's no like real continuity because I think they killed Betty in one story here. Jughead's possessed by a demon and a werewolf in another. So they just do whatever they want with these, and they're fun. You guys ever read any of these Archie horror ones?
Nope. I have not, but I heard so many good things about them.
Yeah, they're I think $4. $4. The standard 20 pages plus some back matter, some how it was created back matter. So it's decent. Let's see. It seems that editors no longer try to enforce any consistency. No, I don't think they do. Maybe they ask everyone to quote board events this all. As much as we bash all the stupid events, that's what people buy. You know, I mean, that's what it comes down to. They wouldn't do the stupid events if they weren't their best sellers. I mean, I don't buy any of them, but you can understand
sometimes
your
POV. Sometimes the events aren't stupid.
Yeah. What was that, Chris?
Sometimes the events are pretty cool.
I have no judgment on the events, just because I don't read them. They're not. I occasionally try to read one, like that X-Men one from a few years ago. It wasn't for me, but like I said, they're their best-selling books, so of course they're going to do them. Yeah, I'm not really down on Riley Rosmo, because I do like. You're right. I like the artistic style, but sometimes I just wish there was some more clarity in it. He's got a fun, busy, throw it all down on the page style, but sometimes I'm like, a little clarity would help me. I don't like getting lost, kind of thing. What's the last event you read and liked, Chris?
I guess that X-Men thing you just talked about.
House of X, Powers of X.
Yeah.
Okay, you like that one?
I liked it, and then once they got into like, okay, back to our regularly scheduled monthly books, I hopped off.
That's funny because my friend Rob hopped on with the event. He was lukewarm on the event, but he's really enjoyed the X-Men books since the event.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment. There was like 6 or 7 or 8 books.
I don't think he's buying that many. I think he's buying 2 or 3 that he likes. You don't have to buy them all.
No, but they tried to make it like it was.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it disconnected from the event pretty quickly, Rob told me.
Yeah, especially because even Hickman lost control of what he was doing. And you know how Hickman is, because he always thinks that he only needs to deliver 5 years from now. Maybe that is not there 5 years from now.
Right.
And the thing about House of X, Powers of X, if they had made it a closed mini-series, or at least had provided some sort of closure from that event, they would have had a perennial book that could stay on the trade paperback charts. So they kind of missed out here on the opportunity to make more money on a regular basis, but they thought they could dip into everyone's pockets, and eventually it never went anywhere. Some of the books got canceled. Many never sold what they thought they'd sell. Like I said, the stories ended up going away from the event.
Right. I remember Rob telling me. It's like they pretty quickly went away from the event and did their own thing, which only makes sense because, as I've said before about reboots always end up, in order to have a reboot actually work, you need a continuity cop. And the guy who has the power to say we're going to reboot the DC universe doesn't want to be a continuity cop. So the writers never want to follow the reboot. They will always subvert it, and it'll always go back to whatever confusing thing it began with. It's entropy. Without that firm hand, continuity cop, a reboot's never going to clean up continuity. And the same with House of X, Powers of X. Hickman can't control all those other writers, and I'm sure he doesn't want to. That would be a full-time job, getting everyone on board for the next 5 years of X-Men writing. It's not going to happen. And the writers are all going to want to subvert it anyway.
I didn't know they abandoned that whole thing.
like I said, I only know that because Rob was buying the books and he told me. So yeah, they abandoned it pretty quick.
Have you ever read the Wild Cards novels?
I have never read them, but I've heard my friend Bunch and various people in the bullpen talk about them for hours.
But one thing that did happen, eventually, even George R.R. Martin stopped editing them. It wasn't playing continuity cop anymore.
Right.
And the writers, each of the writers went off in their own thing.
That's the nature of creativity and the nature of writers. They don't want to follow some other writer's arbitrary rules. They just don't.
Especially because that thing was a spin-off of an RPG. They were all playing together. They had all developed together, and it's explained in the first Wild Cards novel. Me and the friends were all playing an RPG, and we were really getting into it. But then we weren't feeling creative with the books, and I said, let's get all our characters together from the RPG and make and write a book about them. And each of them wrote a story about their favorite the character that they were playing with. And at first it was a sort of a cohesive universe. They had the games master. They all knew each other. But eventually, more people joined, and then George R.R. Martin got famous, and the other guys stopped writing. Some kid called Neil Gaiman proposed, I want to create a character for the Wild Cards universe who goes into people's dreams. And George R.R. Martin said no.
Yeah, like I said, without that's why that whole X-Men House of X, Powers of X dispersed quickly, because it always does.
Thomas was telling me last year that they were still on track with it, and that
maybe are like the Hickman written book.
But there is no Hickman written book anymore.
All I know is what Rob told me, and he reads the books.
We should have Rob and Thomas fight.
Yeah. If either could get out of their chair, I don't think. I don't think that fight's happening. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. The only guy who was a successful continuity cop was Mark Grunwald, because he liked it.
Right.
And in a way,
and
there was enough consistency that people wanted to sort of, as long as they could tell their story, they didn't mind playing along. Let's not do something that's totally against what's being done, which didn't always work, which is how you end up with John Byrne and Chris Claremont taking jabs at each other over Dr. Doom.
Both Marvel and DC at various times have hired Peter Sanderson to be a continuity cop. But even then, he doesn't have the authority over anyone. DC Fear State, Dark Crisis, I find them downers. Well, the titles certainly sound like downers. I've never read them, but Fear State and Dark Crisis don't sound like pick-me-up reads.
Yeah, I think there's always a crisis going on, and there's a Dark Crisis and the Infinite Crisis and the Major Crisis and the...
That's their
whatever.
Word. I want a good ripping yarn. An event isn't a replacement for that. No, good. You want a good ripping yarn? I was just you never reboot the reader. Yeah. You want a good? I was just thinking about. I don't know if there is one, but I'd like a nice hardcover version of Quitely's Jupiter's Legacy, because that was a good ripping yarn. If you like sort of. Because I don't know why it came into my head today how Jupiter's Legacy is a really good superhero. It's sort of it gives you everything you expect. It's full of action, superhero fights. It's clever. It's got great Frank Quitely artwork and drawing. And like Netflix took that and made it into this ponderous talky show that got canceled after one season. But I gotta say, Jupiter's Legacy comes to mind as a good ripping yarn. As And like I said, Mark Miller, the writer, is the master of the expected. I always said there wasn't any twists or turns in there I didn't expect, but they pulled them all off beautifully. And there's, it was a well-crafted modern superhero comic. So if you want to read one of those, check out Jupiter's Legacy. Not any of the spin-off books. I can't vouch for those. But Volume 1 and Volume 2, which were only about 5 issues apiece, and the story reads so quickly. I mean, you could probably get through all 10 issues in 2 hours at most.
Didn't you like also the Magic Order?
I liked the Magic. Well, I liked Volume 1 of the Magic Order. That actually had a twist. I was like, whoa, a twist. Where'd that come from? I liked Volume 2 of Magic Order. I wasn't a fan of Volume 3, and I didn't even bother with the latest one, Volume 4. Because, and what did I just finish reading? That was once, The Ambassadors, another Mark Miller one, which I got because it had a whole bunch of different artists on it. I liked that idea. But the story was, he does this all the time. He introduces the character. He has a lot of gathering the team together. Like in The Ambassadors, the first 5 out of the 6 issues were the gathering the team together stuff. He gathers the team together. He bigs up a big threat to them. He puts them in an impossible to win position, and then they win. And they win because of some clever idea or gimmick, usually. Like there was a clever...
Isn't that every story ever written ever?
No. Because most stories have 3 acts. He has... His 3rd act is the last 8 pages of the comic. Usually act 1, 2, and 3 are kind of the same length. Like in this one, he had act 1 and then act 3. There was no act 2. And he does that. He does that a lot. And also the most superhero stories end with a fist fight. There's nothing really clever about them. Most superheroes, especially big epic ones, there's a widget you have to get. There's a MacGuffin that drives the plot. You have to get that widget. It looks like you're not going to get that widget. You have a big fist fight and get that widget. And maybe there's other fist fights along the way too. And he's got his own, it might be the same as all the other ones, but he's got his own distinct version of it. Let's say that. His 3 acts aren't the same as everyone else's 3 acts. So it's kind of distinctive. You pick up on the pattern after a while. But like I said, he does it, when he does it well, it's really good. Usagi Yojimbo returns in September. Ice and Snow. He's back to Dark Horse. Will it be in color or black and white, I wonder? Either way, I'm buying it, but... Well, and he's still here with the Turtles too, so his solo book will be back. Have you been checking out the Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo, Chris?
I have the first 2 issues and waiting for the others. The others are waiting for me.
I think only the 3rd is out, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Well, that's sitting somewhere waiting for me.
Uh-huh. Another issue that came out this week is Time Before Time, issue number 24. And this was a terrific issue. This is one of their between story arcs. They do these done-in-ones. Rory McConville, Declan Shalvey are the writers. We have a new artist on this for the done-in-one. It's Will Morris. I have no idea who Will Morris is. I don't think I've seen his work before. Chris Halloran is the colorist. I think he's been doing this book. Hassan Atsame Elahu is the letterer. I've seen his name on a lot of books I've been doing recently. I don't have any idea if I'm pronouncing it right. But this is a done-in-one. One of the things about time travel in this is You can't change the past. That is established in this. All the the two syndicates who run the time travel know that. The people they bring back know that they're like, you can't change it's like they won't bring you to a time where you're alive. I mean, they're a criminal organization and they won't do that because there's too much potential for things going wrong. They say we're not doing that.
So are they saying it's against our rules to change time, or it's impossible to change time no matter how hard you try?
And this is the issue we see. It's impossible.
Okay, so why have their strict rules then about like, oh, you can't go?
I'm guessing because other things happened. Because like
changing time?
No, because this is a story of when does it take place? 2120, and this woman, her two kids die in a car crash, and she, of course, is completely distraught. And she hears of this group. She somehow, she digs around and somehow finds out about this group called the Syndicate who has something to do with time travel. So then she dedicates the rest of her time because she wants to go back in time and save her kids who died in this wreck with a truck. Truck hit her car. So, she runs into this guy who he's like, where do you want to go? And he's like, I want to go to this year. And he's like, no, you were alive that year. We can't take you there. She's like, I have to go that year. He's like, what are you up to? You're trying to save someone, huh? Yeah, obviously they've run into this before. And he's like, no. He's like, and he kicks her out. He's like, no, and he blackballs her because they don't want anyone going back in time trying to change time. So she disguises it, cuts her hair, dyes it, goes to another place, and finally gets in where she can gets in with someone else. And the guy finds her and is like, what? You let her in? No way. She can't go. But eventually she makes it back to her past where it looks like she's trying to sabotage the truck that that ran over her kids.
And in so doing, she seals the fate.
Nope, and some sort of time bubble just kills her.
Huh.
She just dies. She tries to change time, just dies. That's how time took care of it. There's some sort of turned her into a skeleton.
Right.
But then the
so did the guys not know that? The people that are telling her like, no, we can't send you where you were alive. We're not doing that.
I don't know what they know. You're one of these guys who just wants all the rules right away, aren't you?
That's the type of guy I am.
Well, it is true. I mean, like I said,
not
Ron,
really. I'm just like wondering because that'd be funny. Like
you want to know how the zombies happened in the Walking Dead
world. I'm just saying, like, if they could deter her by saying, like, well, here's what'll happen if you do this.
I don't know if they know what'll happen besides something will stop her. That was always Robert Heinlein's approach to time travel too. If you went back in time and tried to kill your own grandfather before your father was born, something will stop you. They don't necessarily know what will stop you, and in this case, it was some sort of, I don't know. She just exploded. Who knows if that happened? But
have you ever heard of a movie called Back to the Future?
I have that, but see,
that's cool. It's pretty cool. You should check it out.
Time.
You should check it out.
But also, one of the poignant things about this is in the beginning, we see a kid shot on a basketball court, shot and die on the basketball court. We don't know why, but at the end here, the guy who was trying to stop her from time traveling was back in time. He went back in time. Obviously that kid was someone to him, and he wanted to stop that kid from getting shot and dying, and he just didn't. And there's another version of him there too, I think, trying to stop that. And he even went back in time to try and save the guy he wanted to do, and then went, oh man, I can't do it. A big time bubble will kill me if I try, or whatever it was. So it was like there was a double poignancy. Not only did she fail, but the guy who tried to stop her had already failed. A couple of versions of him had failed. But it was a really nice story, this one. Despite Chris being caught up in the rules, man, I got to know the rules.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know it, Jared. I don't know, Jared. I was at my shop today, and a customer came in to order it. That's the Usagi Yojimbo. Yep. Usually, but I've always found that to be true too, especially since I don't need a lot of rules in my stories. If it's a time travel rule, all I have to know is, can you change time or can you not change time? That's all I need to know. Anything else is just kind of mumbo jumbo to me. But
the book I'm drawing right now is a time travel.
But a lot of people love that mumbo jumbo. They want to know the rules, exactly what you can and can't do. They enjoy that part of it. I'm like, Though I have to tell you, this Black Science is nuts. Any of you guys read Black Science?
I read some of it when it first came out.
I got the big volume of it. And I only read the first issue when it came out. But what's nuts about it is
the color of the science.
They keep going. It's an alternate world, parallel world story. Except, and they built this machine that they say, time and space is like an onion, and each layer is its own world or whatever. And so they pierced the onion to the next layer, and it's just chaos. And it's like someone sabotaged the machine. But it's like everywhere, like different versions of all the characters keep coming together to try and fix things. And they're always like, if we can only go back to that first world, we can fix everything. I'm like, no, you can't. That's pretty obvious. But it's like all these characters keep coming in. Damn it, I'm gonna fix things. I tell you. It's like, no, and they just make things worse. So it's like weird that the lead science guy is obsessed with fixing everything, but clearly once these alternate worlds have been unleashed, you can't stuff the toothpaste back in the tube.
They should give maybe try some green science.
Maybe that would help them.
If we just try a different color of science.
Because this Black Science is sure not working. But it's amazing how many times I've read the same thing. Like the guy's like, I can fix it, I swear. And everybody else is pulling guns on him going, no, you can't. That a whole world hunting down, and this one whole world, they're all hunting down this guy and everyone else. Because it also turns out when you go to alternate worlds, you bring diseases with you. And he like wiped out the entire population of this one world. And they're kind of pissed about it.
You mentioned that.
So it's a fun book, and I'm like, I have no idea where this book is. And I remember back when it was coming out, people complaining that the plot changed direction so many times, which is what he did in Fear Agent too, and I loved it. But I'm like, I can see. I mean, the plot can change at the drop of a hat in this one. Sorry, Chris, time travel doesn't work like Back to the Future. Michael Keaton explained it in the Flash movie. Face green, smiling.
I'm drawing a time travel right now.
Officer Clausen is time traveling?
Yep.
Wow. Where's he going to?
Crime Across Time. Where? When is he going?
You are right. When is he going?
Or when isn't he going to?
By the way, I saw it again this week. Someone made a cartoon. I love the people who always have to explain whenever you talk about time travel. They're like, time travel really wouldn't work because you'd end up in space because the Earth is in a different place. And I'm like, if I invented a hypothetical time machine, I'd invent a hypothetical time space machine. Okay, we all know that.
That's
we
a
all
given.
know that. You don't have to lecture us on how space is different. We all know. We're still dreaming of time machines.
In my rock opera fantasy.
If you're smart enough to come up with a time machine, you might think about where you're going to place it. That just seems like
a no-brainer. If you're smart enough to invent a time machine, you'll take space into consideration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In my rock opera fantasy, the dials actually do go to 11. How? They just do.
121 colossum gigawatts.
Great, Scott.
Colossum gigawatt. Oh, I picked up Rogue Sun, issue 13. This massive verse is rolling along. Another nice issue. Ryan Parrott, Abel, and Marco Renna are the artists. Natalia Marquez is the colorist, and Becca Carey is the letterer. This is the guy who inherited this super suit from his dad. But now some guy from 500 years ago who used to own the super suit and can talk to him in the spirit world took over his body, and now the teenage kid is stuck in the spirit world. So he's got to figure out a way to get his body back. That's our basic plot to what's going on in Rogue Sun. But a solid superhero book. Another B. Time Before Time is an A. Rogue Sun is a B. Saga is a B. New issue of Saga. It's good, just like the other 64 issues of Saga. I don't have much to say about Saga. I like it. Oh, I got Chris G. Russo's favorite here now. Battle Chasers, number 10. I know you got to be a Battle Chasers fan, right? I don't know why.
I don't think I've never read it.
This is the Joe Madureira book from the 90s.
So Randy Green has been anticipating this issue that you. So I know, I already know all about it, but I never actually read Battle Chasers.
Neither have I until this issue. But I recently did watch JLS Comics' History of the Battle Chasers. So I got caught up in the plot of Battle Chasers like a month ago. But Joe Madureira is not drawing it, and they give you a cast of characters and a story so far. Because I don't think an issue has come out in 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. So 1998, maybe 99.
The art is by Ludd Lullaby. Ludd, first name. Lullabi, second name.
So if you were expecting Joe Mad to come back, you're going to be disappointed.
But this guy does a good Joe Mad impression. It was a solid issue. I mean, like I said, I've never read Battle Chasers before.
You know what I
forgot. I have it right here. Randy left it. Randy. But I would say no. This doesn't look like Joe Mad at all.
I will take your word for it. I have not seen his work in so long. It just kind of looks manga influenced to me. I wouldn't.
It does look manga, but it does like I don't look at it and think this is Joe Mad.
See, Joe Mad should have simply bitten the bullet and hired his greatest rival, Roger Cruz, to draw to draw the age. At least you'd have a Madureira clone providing Madureira artwork.
It was a solid comic book. That's about my opinion on it. I enjoyed reading it. I don't know if I'm going to.
What do you think of the colors?
Colors are fine. Gray and pink. That is a little weird. Now that I look at the colors, just flipping through it, there's a lot of green and. It was fine.
I just thought it was really dark and muddy. Looked like it was colored in RGB, converted to CMYK.
I
can't understand why it doesn't look like the screen.
That may be true, but I wouldn't say this. It's very gray. But I have seen books way darker and way muddier than this. Maybe it's just me. Yeah, this one didn't. Maybe it's just the clean line art too. This one didn't strike me as dark and muddy, but it had. Now that I look at the color, it has weird color on it. There's an awful lot of gray and brown.
The prior issues of Battle Chasers were also a lot brighter.
Okay. I thought you hadn't seen them. Turns out you are a big Battle Chasers.
Randy's got all of it, and we were looking at it all.
All right. Yeah, it was okay. Not being a big Battle Chasers fan, I don't have much. Like I said, it was one of the 5 extra books I bought this week just because I wanted some fun extra stuff, and it was all fun extra stuff. None of it was great, but it was cool.
I'm almost sure
That's
I bought
Officer.
when it came out. But
What was that?
I'm almost sure I bought Battle Chasers when they came out, and I probably have all previous 9 issues.
Where they are? Who knows?
Where they are, like the story, no idea.
You Raiders of the Lost Ark them. Does Officer Clawsome have to go to the underwater enchanted high school dance with his lobster mom, Chris?
Yes.
Hey, remember when Smitty ruined his Back to the Future idea by telling it to our 6 viewers?
No, is that something that happened?
Yes. I don't remember when it was. Smitty came in here and asked something about Back to the Future. And he didn't know this was streaming live. He thought it was
okay.
Closed circuit. He's like, oh no, I can't use that idea now. I gave it away. I'm like, oh yeah. Nobody even.
He was probably trying to work out something for this time travel story.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, because he was asking something about Back to the Future. Then you
the story can be about him going back to the past to prevent himself from saying the story idea.
We've got to go back to the past to stop Chris from getting into comics. He'll go to med school instead and be Dr. Jerusa.
Well,
probably get his face scarred in some horrible accident.
I don't think I could have survived medical school.
Did your mom want you to go to medical school?
No. I mean, they didn't. All I know is they probably didn't want me to be in art school.
Well, it could have been worse.
No, it was funny. It's like my brother's always talking about how clearly we were interested in this stuff, and it wasn't encouraged. and then I'm thinking it's like what were they thinking? Like oh, these boys definitely have a very strong interest and aptitude in drawing. And then my mom gets on the phone and signs us up for piano lessons.
Because no one signs anyone up for art lessons,
right? And then gets upset like, what? This is not pay. Like, how come you can't play the piano? I didn't beg you for these lessons. So that was foisted on the first two Jeruso brothers.
Ah.
I guess they gave up on the third one, and he plays the piano.
How did he end up playing the piano?
He just had an interest and aptitude in it.
Did they encourage it?
I think it went largely unrecognized.
So they had the right ideas, just the wrong Giarusso to give it to.
Camp Pickens. Let's see. Do I have a cover of the week? Let's see. Which one is my favorite? Man, not a lot of good covers to choose from.
You know, since Chris is here, we should do another Rip Slab.
All right.
Yeah.
I think my cover of the week is either Femme Force 200 or Giant Cock Chew. Depends if you like.
I would pick Femme Force only because it's the novelty of it never, of it just coming back.
And if you like butts or giant robots. All right. Let me pull out a Reed Rip and Slab. Dun dun dun. Let's see. We're gonna go to, I don't know what this one is, April 1966. This is just before I was born. Oh, we did this one. Oh, hold on. No, that's yeah, we did that one. Bum, bum, bum. That was the TV shows one. I should move that out of there. Let's try March 1976. Let's see what that one is. Oh yeah, that one's good. Marvel Comics, March 1976. Not the A-level ones. Present. Share screen. Window. There we go. We got the Son of Satan number 4, Daredevil 134, and Doctor Strange 15. All solid examples of mid-70s Marvel mediocrity. I think I had all of them. Nobody's favorite Marvel comics right here.
I don't know. You got 2 turbos in one issue.
I know. 2 against a chameleon. 1 turbo, 2 turbos. Oh.
So, oh man, those villains are uninspiring.
Hey.
So which one do I actually want to read?
Marvel. I go for mediocre Marvel. I can't have one be better than the other and make it an easy choice.
You know what? I'm going to read Daredevil. And I'm going to rip Son of Satan.
Aha.
And slap Doctor Strange.
And I want you to know, I have read all 3 of these. I don't remember one of them.
I would read Son of Satan because I don't think I ever read an issue of Son of Satan.
They're mediocre, let me tell you.
Yeah. I know enough about it, but read Son of Satan, I would slap Daredevil because he got 2 turbos in the cover. And I would have to rip Doctor Strange. And I would put the Dolphin on the turbos because you got to have 2 Dolphins going after Daredevil.
That's Torpedo, I think, by the way.
Yeah, this is the Torpedo. Yeah, it's the Torpedo.
Okay.
I don't know where to put the Dolphin. Maybe replace Doctor Strange with the Dolphin.
Let's see. What does Tit Goblin do? Rip Satan, Reed Strange, Slab DV. Dolphin stays out of it all because they're too mediocre for him. I am putting the Dolphin where Son of Satan's trident is. So he'll be shooting a flaming dolphin.
That's good.
That's
yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm putting it.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I'm slabbing Son of Satan because that's just so ridiculous. Who in their right mind would slab Son of Satan number 4? Nobody. There's probably none of those in the census. And I'm going to read Doctor Strange because I think it's got Gene Colan art and rip Daredevil. Even though I might like that Daredevil cover best, but I don't know. I've had enough of Daredevil's buttocks. So
I don't think that one has Gene Colan art.
Yeah.
Can't remember. It was
as a Gene Colan cover, definitely.
Yeah, but it might not have.
Yeah,
art.
You never know with these mediocre 1970s Marvel who could be drawing any given issue.
Frank Brunner was already gone.
Yeah. This was the Gene Colan era. This was his series, so I think he drew it, but there could always be a fill-in. You never know.
Right.
Daredevil is still being written by Marv Wolfman. I think this is before Roger McKenzie came on board.
I think Wolfman was writing Doctor Strange too with Colan, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who did Son of Satan.
By this stage, maybe Jerry Conway wasn't there anymore. But then again, Son of Satan, I have no. They changed writers twice, and one of them went back to the state that it was on Marvel Premiere, even though the ongoing series had already Damon Elstrom moved to a different state.
I just remember Son of Satan was one of those you could just tell Marvel didn't have their top talents on it. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody cared.
Yeah, nobody cared. They changed. Whoever was available to do it did it. There was a lot of mediocre 70s Marvel like that. What about you, Chris?
I'm not sure I understand what this exercise is.
It's like a kiss, marry, kill. One comic book you read. One comic book you slab, send it to CGC and get it preserved. And one comic book you rip up. And then the Dolphin comes in because when Aquaman, what was it, 26?
Yeah, so it was so Aquaman was published in France,
in the 60s,
and
right?
Yeah, and you couldn't have men interacting with unmarried men and women interacting in children's publications. And in that cover, Aquaman is holding Mera. So what they did, and what they did was they replaced Mera with a dolphin.
I got it at the ready.
Here it is. So the one on the left is the French cover.
So since we found this out, we've added it to the game of rip, read, and slab. You replace something with a dolphin.
Wow. Well, the rip, read, and slab. So since I'm drawing on my iPad, I'm talking to you guys on my phone, and I'm looking at postage stamps. So I don't really have much to go on here.
Son of Satan number 4, Daredevil 134, and Doctor Strange 15, all from March of 1976. They're all equally mediocre, so you kind of have to make your choices arbitrarily. That's what we generally do. We find some way to make our choices.
I'm going to slab Doctor Strange because he's in the movies. And I feel like there's something that stops Marvel from doing something like Son of Satan. Like Satan isn't a good word for, like they can't do like supernatural or anything religious. It doesn't play overseas, or it doesn't get carried in those markets. On the other hand, that they did Werewolf by Night. They did that special.
But there's no, they didn't mention Satan. They go with Mephisto these days.
Yeah. So okay, I'll slab Doctor Strange. I'm gonna tear up Daredevil. because everybody's so angry about him being in the She-Hulk show. I don't expect anybody to care about this book ever again.
So rip it up, and you'll read Son of Satan because it's got.
I'll read Son of Satan. I'll find out exactly how dangerous it is for
if
people
your soul
to actually
will be
read.
in danger after reading it, you'll learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'll take. I'll gamble on that.
Chris never played this game with us, huh?
I thought
First
you had by
time.
now.
Cut to you guys uncover footage of me playing this game before.
We'll have to watch entire 3-hour shows, and nobody wants to do that.
They all have transcripts now, you know.
Oh,
You
can
can click on one of the shows and click the transcript button, and it runs through, and you can just copy and paste it and do a search for Chris.
Sounds like someone's got a fun night ahead of them.
Matter of fact, I just got turns out you have to pay for it, so I don't actually have it. An extension for Google Chrome where it puts a transcript button right next to your YouTube video, and if you click on it, it will format the transcript for you for plain text, Excel, whatever you want to format it for. It's like, okay. But yeah, it's all AI transcripts now you can find. Let's see. Jared and Wilson, were you encouraged to go into the arts? I don't know if I was encouraged, but I wasn't discouraged.
I was, when I stated that I was interested in doing artwork, my mom did encourage it, because I found out years later she wanted to be an artist and there was no one there to encourage her. So when I made my decision that I want to be an artist in the 3rd grade, you know, that's when life choices really should be made. I wanted to go into arts. It was, you know, she did what she could to find me places that I can take classes or what have you, let the family know whatever gifts you give them, make sure they're like art supplies. And I had gotten so many pastels over the years that I never knew how to use. That must have been like the cheapest item to be given. Because every year I would get a pastel.
Those pastels they give to kids too are like rock hard pastels.
Yes.
They're like the worst pastels in the world. If there was ever something to make a kid not be interested in pastels, it's the pastels that they give to kids.
I recall when I finally tossed them out years later, I had a stack of them. Just never used, because every time you were using, they just snap and break. And
you couldn't draw. It was like drawing. It was like a piece of rock on a piece of paper. You're like, I can't get a line out of this. Then the other one you always got as a kid, besides pastels, is crayons, which were the what are they called? They're like a wax crayon. But they're sort of fancy crayons, crayons. They're an oil pastel kind of thing. And they were just like greasy and got all over everything, and they were tough to work with. But they weren't as tough to work with as pastels, which were like, especially since when you're a kid, all you're drawing on is like typing paper. You don't. It's not like you have 300 weight watercolor paper. So when you rub that rock hard pastel on that ultra smooth thin paper, it's like
or maybe a nice newsprint pad.
Yeah. Ooh, those pastels will make anybody not interested in pastels.
Yeah. So there was encouragement for me to get into the arts.
All right, well, we should say good night. It's about time to say good night. Paulo, were you encouraged to have a supercomputer brain and memory?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
If it, there were some aunts and second cousins who were impressed with my encyclopedic knowledge of countries' capitals, especially when I, as a 5-year-old, was asked the capital of Germany, and I asked, which one, East Germany or West Germany?
One Germany, two Germanys.
Well, this was before David Hasselhoff started singing in the in the wall.
All right. Well, we're gonna say goodnight so you can all pull out your David Hasselhoff albums and give a good listen.
I've been looking for freedom.
A good one out there.